The ruins were silent, broken walls standing like skeletons against the night sky. Smoke still rose from the battlefield far behind, and the air smelled of fire and blood. A human soldier moved carefully through the shadows, his boots crunching softly on the shattered ground. His rifle was heavy in his hands, his eyes sharp, searching for movement. He was tired, hungry, and alone, but his training kept him moving. One wrong step, and the enemy would find him. One wrong noise, and death would come fast. Then he saw it. A shadow slipped across the broken street. His muscles tightened. His finger moved to the trigger. He raised his weapon, ready to fire. The figure stopped, frozen, as if caught in the light, though there was no light here, only the pale glow of the dying moon. Slowly, very slowly, the figure raised her hands, long slender fingers trembling, and then, in a broken whisper, words reached him. "Don't shoot, human. I can give you a family." The soldier's breath caught. His mind raced. An alien, a woman, standing before him with wide, fearful eyes. Her skin was pale and shone faintly in the night, her clothes torn and dirty, her face lined with exhaustion. She was not holding a weapon, only lifting her empty hands, surrender in her every movement. But her words were strange, too strange. Family? Why would she say that? What did it mean? The human did not lower his rifle. He kept it aimed steady at her chest, his voice low. "What do you mean? Why are you here?" The woman looked at him with desperation, her lips shaking. "You kill me if you want, but my children, they will not survive without me, and without you." Her voice broke, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I can give you something you don't have, human. Not war, not enemies. A family." The soldier blinked, confused and unsettled. He had fought aliens before, many times. They were brutal, merciless, lever. But this woman, did not look like an enemy. She looked fragile, too thin, like she had not eaten for days. Her arms were scratched, her voice weak, but her eyes were full of fire. Not the fire of war, but the fire of a mother fighting to protect something precious. He took a step closer, his rifle still aimed. "Why should I believe you?" he asked, his voice sharp. She flinched but did not lower her hands. "Because I have nothing left but truth," she whispered. Behind her, in the darkness of the broken wall, the soldier thought he heard something, a faint sound, soft, like the whimper of a child. His eyes narrowed, his weapon shifting. The woman gasped and moved slightly, as if to block his view. "Please," she begged, "not them. They are only children. They did nothing wrong." The sound came again, clearer this time. A small cough, then silence. The soldier's heart beat faster. He was trained to kill, not to protect. But in that sound, in that tiny voice hidden in the ruins, something inside him cracked. Memories of his own childhood flashed. Memories of loneliness. Memories of the family he had lost long ago. He swallowed hard, lowering his rifle just a little, still cautious, still ready, but no longer ready to fire. The woman saw the small change and hope flickered in her eyes. "You don't have to be alone, human," she said softly. "I can give you a family, if you let us live." Her words struck deeper than the soldier expected. In war, there were no families. Only comrades, only blood and orders. But here, in this broken place, the word family sounded like a promise, like a lifeline. He had not heard it in years, and now an alien, an enemy, was offering it to him. He tightened his grip on the rifle, torn between duty and something else, something dangerous. If he spared her, he was betraying his orders. If he killed her, he was killing not just a man, but children hiding behind her. For the first time in many battles, the soldier hesitated. The silence stretched, filled only with the distant crackle of fire and the sound of the woman's uneven breathing. Her hands still shook in the air, but her gaze never left his. She was not begging for her life. Not really. She was begging for theirs. And in that moment, the soldier realized this was not a simple standoff. It was a choice that could change everything. His weapon was still raised, his finger still near the trigger, but his heart, for the first time in years, was moving in another direction. The woman whispered one last time, voice breaking like glass. Don't shoot. Please. We can be your family. The soldier's breath caught, his weapon trembled, and the knight held its breath, waiting to see what he would do. The soldier did not fire. The alien woman lowered her trembling hands, her eyes shining with disbelief. For a long moment they just stared at each other in the ruins, two enemies who should never have spoken, yet both trapped by the same silence. Finally she whispered, her voice weak but urgent. Follow me, but keep your weapon ready. If others find us, we both die. He hesitated, the rifle heavy in his grip. This could be a trap. A trick to lead him into an ambush, but then he heard it again, that soft cough from the shadows, the sound of small lungs struggling in the cold night. He could not ignore it, not anymore. He nodded once, his jaw tight. Go ahead, I'll follow. She turned quickly, her bare feet moving silently across the broken stones. The soldier followed, every muscle tense, scanning the shadows. The ruins were wide and empty, filled with burnt metal and shattered walls. But the woman moved as if she knew every path, every hiding place. At last, she stopped in front of a half-collapsed building, a broken dome of stone and steel. She pushed aside a heavy slab with surprising strength, revealing a dark opening. The soldier lifted his weapon, ready, but the woman simply gestured. Inside, she whispered. This is where we hide. He ducked his head and stepped into the narrow space. The air was damp and smelled of earth and smoke. The passage was small, forcing him to crouch. Then it opened into a larger chamber, hidden deep beneath the ruins. He stopped, eyes widening, because inside there were signs of life. Small blankets made from torn cloth lay on the ground. A fire pit burned faintly, giving off a weak orange glow. And in the corner, two tiny shapes moved. Children, alien children, their faces pale, their eyes too big for their thin bodies. They clutched each other tightly, staring at the soldier with fear. The moment he entered, they whimpered, one of them trying to hide behind the other. The woman rushed forward, kneeling beside them. She touched their heads gently, whispering words in her own language, soft and calming. Then she looked back at the soldier, her eyes pleading. These are my children, the last thing I have left. If you kill me, at least let them live. The soldier's grip on his weapon loosened. He had faced monsters in this war, brutal creatures with claws and teeth and hatred in their eyes. But these were only children, their bones stuck out under their skin, their clothes torn, their lips dry and cracked. They were not warriors, they were survivors, clinging to life in the dark. His chest tightened with something he had almost forgotten. Pity. He lowered his weapon slightly, though he kept it ready. Why are you here? Why not with your people? He asked. The woman's face darkened with pain. They cast us out. My mate is dead. The others saw me as weak. They said mouths too small to feed were not worth saving. So I ran. I hid. I tried to keep them alive. But food is gone. And now the soldiers search everywhere. Her hands trembled as she pulled the children close. I cannot fight them. I cannot run anymore. But maybe you can. The soldier's heart pounded. Her words were dangerous. They pulled at him in ways his orders forbade. He was a soldier, sworn to fight aliens, not protect them. Yet as he looked at the two small children, staring at him, with wide, frightened eyes, he felt something shift. They reminded him of faces he once knew. Faces long gone. Faces of family lost to war. The silence stretched. Finally, the woman broke it. You asked why you should believe me. This is why. My truth is here, in their eyes. They are not soldiers. They are not your enemies. They are only children, and they will die without help. The soldier's throat was dry. He wanted to turn away, to leave, to close his heart before it was too late. But his feet stayed rooted, his weapon lowered inch by inch. The children's eyes followed him, full of fear, but also a tiny spark of hope. It was that spark that broke him. Where do you get food? He asked, his voice rough. The woman looked down, shame in her face. We steal scraps when we can, sometimes from your camps, sometimes from the ruins, but it is not enough. I give them everything, and still they starve. The smaller child whimpered, pressing against her side. The soldier clenched his fists, anger burning, not at them, but at a war that turned mothers into beggars and children into ghosts. He took a deep breath, forcing control. I can get food, but if your people find me helping you, they'll kill us all. The woman nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his words. Still, her eyes glowed with something fragile, something almost broken. Hope. You would help us? She whispered. The soldier did not answer. Not yet. He only glanced once more at the children, at their hollow cheeks and shaking hands. His silence was enough. Outside, the night was filled with the distant roar of engines and the heavy steps of patrols. The enemy was still searching, drawing closer, but deep in the hidden shelter, a new fire was lit. Not in the pit on the floor, but in the soldier's chest, a dangerous fire, one that could change everything. He adjusted his weapon, moving closer to the wall, stealing for danger. Behind him, the woman pulled the children close and whispered softly, "You don't have to be alone, human. Stay with us, and I will give you the family you lost." The soldier closed his eyes for 1 second. The word family echoed in his mind like a forgotten prayer. He opened them again, sharper, harder, but not the same as before. He was no longer just a soldier passing through ruins. Now, whether he wanted it or not, he was part of something more, and outside, the footsteps of hunters drew nearer. The night was far from over. The standoff was done, but the real fight had only just begun. The soldier sat in the corner of the hidden shelter, his rifle resting across his knees. The fire in the pit had faded to embers, casting soft orange light on the cracked stone walls. He had not spoken much since entering. His eyes watched everything, the shadows, the cracks, the door. But most of all, he watched the two small figures curled beside the alien woman. The children. They had not come closer. They sat beside their mother, legs folded tight, hands held together. Their faces were thin, hollowed by hunger, eyes too big for their heads. The smaller one trembled now and then, not from fear, but from cold. The bigger child tried to be brave, glancing at the soldier with cautious curiosity. But neither had spoken a word. Their mother had wrapped them in scraps of cloth and held them close. She had tried to smile, to calm them, but her hands trembled when she thought he wasn't looking. She had been strong for too long, and even strength had its limits. The soldier reached into his pack, pulled out a ration bar. He didn't say anything, didn't explain. He just placed it gently on the ground and slid it across to her. The woman's eyes widened. She looked at him like he had offered her gold, or something greater. Without a word, she broke the bar in half and gave it to the children. At first, the children hesitated. They looked at the strange food, then at their mother. She nodded gently, and they took the pieces with shaking hands. The moment it touched their mouths, they devoured it. Fast, hungry bites, like they hadn't eaten in days. The soldier looked away, not because he was disgusted, but because something twisted inside his chest. It was the kind of hunger you never forget, the kind he had once known himself long ago. "I'm sorry," the woman whispered. "They are scared. They've never seen a human so close before." The soldier glanced at her. "Why aren't they speaking?" he asked. "They've been quiet since their father died," she said, eyes full of pain. "The little one hasn't spoken a word in over a cycle. The older one only talks to me." He didn't know what to say. Death, war, loss. These were familiar to him, but seeing them reflected in the eyes of children made everything feel different. He wasn't just a soldier in enemy land anymore. He was in someone's home. Broken as it was, this was their shelter, their only safe place, and he had stepped into it with a weapon. The older child looked at him now, chewing slowly. There was a flicker in her eyes, not trust, not yet, but something close to curiosity. After a moment, she reached into the cloth she wore and pulled out something small, a carved figure, made of scrap wood, shaped like a bird. She held it out slightly, not offering it, just showing it. The soldier blinked, surprised. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. The child didn't reply, but she didn't pull it back either. "That was her father's," the woman said softly. "He made it for her before the battle. She carries it everywhere." The soldier stared at the small figure, then at the girl. His voice dropped. "Your father must have been a good man." The girl's eyes lowered, and she clutched the bird close again. Silence filled the room once more. Outside, thunder rumbled far away, or maybe it was machinery. The soldier leaned against the wall and closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't sleep. Not fully. He just let his thoughts drift, back to the day his own sister had died, back to the time when his family was taken by war, and how he had promised never to feel that kind of pain again. Now here he was, sitting across from an alien mother, her children watching him like a wild animal might watch a flame, not quite afraid anymore, but not safe either. Suddenly, the smaller child sneezed. A soft sound that made the woman tense. She reached over, touching her forehead. "She's getting worse," she whispered. "Her fever keeps returning." The soldier stood up immediately, pulling open a pouch on his belt. He handed over a small pack of wipes and a cooling patch. The woman took them with trembling fingers, as if unsure they were real. "Why are you helping?" she asked, not accusing, just confused. He didn't answer at first. Then he said quietly, "Because I couldn't help someone before." That was all he said, but the woman seemed to understand. Her expression softened, and she nodded once. The child flinched when the cooling patch was applied, but didn't resist. The room grew quiet again, the kind of quiet that felt like something had changed, like two worlds were slowly beginning to overlap. Not enemies, not allies, but something else. The older child looked up once more and crawled slightly closer to the soldier. Still cautious, still slow. She didn't speak, but she placed the wooden bird gently near his foot, then crawled back to her mother. The soldier stared at the toy, stunned. It wasn't a gift, not really, but it was a test, a silent question. "Can I trust you?" The soldier bent down slowly and picked it up. He didn't pocket it, didn't claim it, he just held it in his palm and gave a small nod to the girl. Her eyes widened, just a little. In that moment, something invisible shifted. The wall between them cracked, just enough for light to pass through. And for the first time, the children saw not a soldier, but maybe, just maybe, something close to family. The night outside the shelter was no longer quiet. Faint hums echoed through the ruins, followed by the heavy stomp of metal boots. Searchlights swept across the broken buildings like ghostly fingers. The enemy patrols were getting closer. Inside the hidden shelter, the soldier snapped to alert. He heard it before the others. The soft crackle of radios, the crunch of shifting stone above. He grabbed his rifle and turned toward the entrance, signaling for silence. The alien woman froze, pulling both children against her chest. Fear returned to her eyes, sharp and quick. "They're searching this sector," the soldier whispered. The woman nodded quickly. "They come every few days, but they've never searched this deep before." The soldier moved toward the hidden entrance and peered out through a narrow crack in the wall. Bright lights cut through the darkness like blades. He could see at least 3 figures, armored and armed. They were scanning the area with handheld devices. One of them stopped and pointed at something on the ground. The others gathered around it. Then one of them turned and looked straight toward the shelter. His breath caught. "They've found our tracks," he muttered. The woman's hand tightened around her children. The smaller one whimpered, and she quickly hushed her with soft words. The older child just stared at the wall, frozen with wide eyes. "They will kill us," she whispered. "They don't take prisoners anymore." The soldier looked back at her, then at the children. He didn't speak. He just moved, fast and careful, checking the walls, scanning the ground. There had to be another way out, another exit. Even a crawl space, anything. The shelter was deep, but it was old. There were tunnels below, passageways from the city that used to live here before the war. He turned to the woman. "Is there another way out?" She hesitated, then nodded. "There is a tunnel, but it's collapsed halfway. It's too small for you." "I'll make it work," he said, his voice hard. He knelt down and pulled a small light from his belt. "Show me." She moved quickly, lifting a slab of broken stone near the back wall. Beneath it was a dark, narrow hole, barely wide enough for a child to crawl through. The soldier shined the light inside, twisting roots, damp soil, and tight walls. No adult would fit easily, but there was no choice. "You go first with the children. he said. The woman shook her head. "No, you won't fit behind us. You go. I'll follow with them." "No time to argue," he growled. "I cover the rear. Move." She didn't argue again. She grabbed a small pouch of food, lifted the smallest child onto her back, and grabbed the older one's hand. She crawled into the hole with quick, practiced movements. The children followed without protest. The soldier turned back and tossed dirt over the fire to hide the glow. Then he placed a small trap near the entrance, an explosive mine, just in case. Voices came closer now, rough, harsh voices speaking in a language he didn't fully understand, but he knew the tone. Orders, urgency, they were coming. He crawled into the hole, the tunnel pressing against his back and shoulders. It was tight, almost suffocating. He could barely move forward, but he kept crawling, inch by inch. His rifle dragged behind him, the stone scraping against his armor. The light flickered, then died, leaving him in darkness. Only the sounds of the woman ahead, the whisper of children, and the pounding of his own heart remained. Suddenly, the ground above him shook. There was an explosion. His trap had been triggered. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the tunnel groaned like it might collapse. The child ahead let out a muffled scream. "Keep moving," he whispered. "Just a little more." They pushed forward, crawling through the narrow earth. The air grew colder, the soil damper. Finally, the tunnel opened slightly, and the woman reached the end first. She pushed a stone slab upward and slipped out into the fresh night air. The children followed, and finally, the soldier dragged himself out last, covered in dirt, his lungs burning. They had exited into what used to be a garden. Now it was a patch of mud, with broken benches and twisted metal vines. But they were out. For now, they were safe. The soldier stood slowly, wiping the mud from his face. He looked back at the tunnel entrance and pulled the slab back into place, hiding it once again. The woman looked at him, breathing hard. "You saved us," she said softly. He didn't reply. He just listened, scanning the darkness. The patrol would find the empty shelter soon. Then they would search wider. Faster. They had only bought a little time. The children huddled near their mother, their eyes darting around the strange new space. The older one reached out and touched the soldier's arm, just for a second, then pulled back. But it was enough. The soldier looked down at her and gave a small nod. Something inside him had changed. They weren't just people to protect anymore. They were his responsibility. "We keep moving," he said, "far from here, away from the ruins, before they come again." The woman nodded. She didn't say thank you, not yet, but her eyes said everything. Together, they vanished into the night. A soldier, a mother, and two alien children, running not just from war, but toward something new, something none of them dared name yet. The forest beyond the ruins was quiet. Too quiet, not the peace of nature, but the silence before something terrible. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The soldier led the way, his rifle ready, scanning every shadow. The alien woman followed closely, carrying the smaller child on her back. The older child held her hand, taking careful steps. No one spoke. Their feet moved fast but silent, stepping over roots, ducking under broken branches. They had escaped the shelter, but not the danger. Behind them, in the distance, a new sound echoed through the trees. A low hum, growing louder. Search drones. Their lights flickered between the trees, moving like eyes in the dark. "They found the tunnel," the soldier muttered. The woman's face paled. "We have to go faster." They pushed deeper into the forest, following an old path the woman claimed she knew. It led toward a fallen communications tower, where they might hide. But the drones were getting closer. Soon, the hum turned into a buzz, and red lights flashed between the trees. Then came the voice, mechanical and sharp. "Unregistered movement detected. Halt immediately." The soldier cursed under his breath. "They've got us." The first drone broke through the trees, small but deadly, its camera eye glowing red. It fired a warning shot that struck the ground near the woman's feet. The children screamed, and she dropped to her knees, shielding them. The soldier raised his rifle and fired. One sharp blast. The drone exploded mid-air, flames flashing through the dark. But it was too late. The rest of the patrol had heard the shot. From the far side of the forest, more lights flickered. Footsteps thundered on the ground, armored boots crushing leaves. "Run!" the soldier shouted. "Get to the tower, now!" The woman obeyed, grabbing the older child's hand and running as fast as she could. The soldier turned and took position behind a thick tree trunk. He could see the enemy now. 4 soldiers, moving in formation, weapons drawn. He fired again, striking one in the chest, sending him flying backward. Another shot hit a second target in the leg, dropping him to the ground. But the others spread out, taking cover, returning fire. Blasts lit the forest with blue and red sparks, burning into trees and dirt. The soldier ducked behind a fallen log, breathing hard. His armor sizzled where a shot had grazed his shoulder, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. One of the enemies flanked him, coming from the left. The soldier rolled and fired mid-move. The shot struck true. 3 down, 1 left. He was outnumbered, but not outmatched. Still, he knew he couldn't win forever. He just needed time. Enough time for the woman and children to reach the tower. He pulled a flash grenade from his belt and hurled it behind him as he ran. A second later, it exploded, filling the forest with white light. The last soldier screamed, disoriented. The human didn't look back. He sprinted through the trees, his side aching, blood trickling down his arm. Up ahead, the tower rose through the trees, rusted but tall. The woman was already at the base, her hands pulling at a broken metal door. The older child stood near her, eyes wide. The smaller one was crying now, softly, but with fear that stabbed the air. The soldier reached them just as another drone zipped overhead. He fired without pausing, 1 clean shot, and the machine exploded above them. Sparks rained down, burning through leaves. "Hurry," he growled. "Inside." They slipped through the broken door and into the shadows of the old tower. Inside, it was cold and dark, filled with old machines and dust. But it was cover, and for now, it was enough. The soldier slid down beside the door, breathing hard. His hands trembled slightly from adrenaline. The woman came to his side and tore a piece of cloth from her sleeve. "You're hurt," she whispered. He grunted. "It's nothing." But she didn't listen. She pressed the cloth against the bleeding wound. Her hands were gentle, her touch steady. "Thank you for fighting for us," she said. He looked at her, sweat on his brow, dirt on his face. "I didn't fight for you," he said roughly. She didn't flinch, only smiled softly. "You did." The children curled up beside an old machine, their eyes watching him now, not with fear, but awe. The older child still clutched the wooden bird, holding it close like a talisman. The younger one crawled into her mother's lap, finally resting. Outside, the forest burned. Smoke drifted through the trees, and sirens cried in the distance. More would come. The soldier knew that, but they had survived. For now. And in the firelight from outside, he saw it clearly. This was no longer just a mission, no longer about orders or war. This was personal. He had chosen to protect them, to fight for them, and he would do it again, no matter the cost. The wind howled through the broken tower windows. Dust danced in the pale light of early morning. Outside, the sounds of search patrols had faded, replaced by silence. But no one inside felt safe yet. The soldier sat near the rusted door, his rifle in hand, eyes half closed but alert. He hadn't slept, not even for a second. Every noise made his fingers twitch. Every shadow made his body tense. But the shelter had held through the night, and that was something. The alien woman sat across from him, her back against the wall. She held the smaller child on her lap, brushing her fingers gently through tangled hair. The older child leaned on her side, asleep at last. They looked peaceful now, but only because he had fought to give them that peace. The woman looked up and met his eyes. "You didn't leave us," she said quietly. It wasn't a question, it was a fact. The soldier didn't answer right away. He looked at the sleeping children, then at the blood-soaked cloth on his arm. "No," he said finally. "I didn't." She smiled softly, a tired smile that still held warmth. "I thought you would run when the shooting started." He shook his head. "I've done too much running." A pause passed between them, then she said something strange, something quiet. In my world, when someone protects another at the risk of death, we consider it a bond. He frowned. A bond? She nodded slowly. A sacred connection, not just between bodies, but between souls, not by blood, but by choice. He shifted on souls. Comfortably. I'm just a soldier. I don't know about soul bonds. She looked down at her children, then whispered, But you didn't act like just a soldier. Her words hit deeper than he expected. He thought of all the missions, all the times he had followed orders. But this had been different from the beginning. He hadn't followed orders when he saved them. He had followed something else, something he thought he'd buried long ago. The soldier looked at her again. You said you could give me a family, he said carefully. Why did you say that back in the ruins? She took a deep breath. When I saw you, I saw your eyes, she said. They weren't the eyes of a killer. They were the eyes of someone lost, someone alone. He didn't deny it, she continued. I didn't lie, human. I truly believe you can have something more. Not just war, not just blood. She placed her hand gently on the older child's head. I didn't just want to save them. I wanted to save you too. He stared at her, unsure what to say. He had been alone for so long. Family was just a word to him now, a memory from a past he no longer talked about. But something inside him stirred when she spoke, something warm, dangerous, and unfamiliar. She leaned forward just a little. My name is Very, she said. I know you don't trust easily, but trust begins with a name. He hesitated, then nodded. Callum, he said quietly. That's my name. Very smiled. A strong name, she said. It suits someone who stands between death and life. Callum looked at her children again. They trust me now, he said, surprised at his own words. Vari nodded. They trust you because I do. He looked away. I don't know what comes next. More patrols, more danger. She reached across the space between them and gently touched his injured arm. Then let us face it together. He didn't pull away. Her hand was warm, soft, despite the calluses. That simple touch said more than words ever could. You should rest, he said finally, his voice softer now. I'll keep watch a little longer. She hesitated, then nodded. But Betha, or closing her eyes, she said one last thing. If we survive this, I promise, I will never leave your side. Callum didn't reply, but he looked at her for a long moment, and in that moment, the promise took root in both their hearts, unspoken but understood. A new bond had formed, not between enemies, not between strangers, but between a human who had lost everything, and an alien mother who had nothing left but hope. The tower creaked in the wind, but the storm had passed. For now, and as the sun began to rise, Callum stood by the door, guarding not just lives, but the first fragile pieces of a new future. The sun rose slow and pale over the horizon, its light stretched across the broken land, turning the metal bones of the dead city into golden shadows. Inside the old tower, the silence was warm, not fearful anymore. For the first time in days, there was peace. Callum stood by the cracked window, his rifle slung across his back. He watched the trees below, the distant ruins behind them. No lights, no drones, no boots crunching the ground. The enemy had moved on, searching in the wrong direction. Behind him, Vari stirred awake, her hand still resting protectively over her youngest child. The older girl opened her eyes and stretched, blinking toward the soft morning light. No one spoke for a while. No one needed to. Callum turned from the window and walked to where Vari was sitting. They're gone for now, he said, but it won't last long. She nodded, her voice still husky with sleep. Then we move again. Callum crouched beside her. I know a place, he said. It's not far, but it's safe. Underground tunnels, old tech shelters from before the war. Vari looked at him with quiet hope. You've stayed, she whispered, even when you could have walked away. He gave a small nod. I told myself I was only helping, he said. But now, I don't want to leave. Her fingers brushed his arm, a light touch, not romantic, but something deeper, not need, but trust. You are not alone anymore, she said softly. You're one of us now. The words were simple, But they struck like thunder in his heart. For years he had drifted from place to place, mission to mission. No roots, no home, just survival. But now, with these 3 lives depending on him and accepting him, he felt something different. He felt like he belonged. Vari stood up, wrapping her arms around her children. "We're ready," she said. The older child looked at Callum and gave a shy nod. Then she reached into her pouch and handed him the wooden bird. This time, she wasn't showing it, she was giving it to him. Callum took it carefully. His voice almost broke when he said, "Thank you." He placed it in his pocket like it was treasure. They moved quickly, leaving the tower behind as the wind picked up again. Callum led the way through a narrow trail, guiding them through rocky hills and past scorched ground. They walked for hours, only stopping when the children needed rest. He carried the younger one when she grew tired. She rested her head on his shoulder without fear. It felt natural. By late afternoon, they reached a narrow cliffside where broken rocks formed a hidden path. Callum stopped and turned to Vari. "This is it," he said. The woman looked uncertain. "There's nothing here." Callum smiled a little. "Not yet." He stepped forward and knelt by a cluster of old stones, brushing away dust and vines. Then he pressed a sequence of buttons on a half-buried panel. A small beep answered him, and a hidden door slowly opened in the cliffside. Cold air rushed out from the dark space beyond. Vari gasped. "You had this prepared?" He shook his head. "No, but I remembered it. We used these tunnels years ago, before the war went bad. It's forgotten now." Inside, the shelter was dusty but dry. Old supplies lined the shelves: blankets, canned food, water filters, even small medical kits. It wasn't much, but to them, it was paradise. Vari set the children down gently, and helped them drink fresh water from a bottle. Their faces lit up as they tasted something clean and real. Callum sat nearby, watching with quiet pride. He had fought wars for causes he never believed in. But this moment, this safety, felt like a true victory. As night fell, a small fire flickered in the corner of the shelter. The children curled up beside their mother, already drifting into sleep. Vari looked across the fire at Callum. "I meant what I said before," she whispered. "You gave me more than protection. You gave me a future." He met her gaze. "And you gave me a reason to stop running." They sat in silence for a while, not needing promises, not needing big words. Their bond was real, stronger than fear, deeper than blood. Callum placed his rifle beside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't holding it like a shield. He didn't feel like a weapon anymore. He felt like something else, something he had almost forgotten how to be. He felt like a man who had found a home. Vari reached out, her fingers brushing his once more. This time, he didn't pull away. He took her hand in his. It was quiet, gentle, but it meant everything. Tomorrow would bring danger again. More enemies, more hard choices. But tonight, under the fire's warm light, they were not soldiers, not aliens, not fugitives. They were a family, and that was enough.